And I'm Molly Dorn, the Executive Director of Skagit Land Trust. Laura Hartner is our Development and Outreach Director. You'll be hearing from her later. We also have Roger Fuller, who is a Skagit Land Trust board member, and he's also the Natural Resource Restoration and Stewardship Coordinator for the Padilla Bay Reserve. Roger will also be speaking later. So the project that we're talking about is we have every one of these we've done. Everybody has different ideas about what we should call it. So Samish Island Shorelines Conservation Project, Samish Entrance Project. It is the entrance to Samish Island, circled in right in the yellow line there. It is as you drive on to Samish Island, it's everything you see on the left and the right. And the picture on the left-hand side is actually one of the wetlands on the property. And so if you look out to your left as you come on to Samish Island, this is what you see, and this is a property that we're talking about. Some of the trees are owned by us already in the Samish Flower Farm, and some of these belong to the property. It's 50 acres, 50 to 55 acres. It's on the neck of Samish Island, and it's very unusual in that it has coastline on both Padilla Bay and Alice Bay, which is part of Samish Bay. So on in these pictures, the picture on the right is Alice Bay, the picture on the left is actually the property on Padilla Bay. And it's a great project because it helps protect an extended conservation area that's protected. So you can see on the left, the picture shows the property itself. So it has the yellow outlines, but you can see above it that many of you on this call helped us preserve the Samish Flower Farm conservation area. And a long time ago, the Squires donated a conservation easement, which is now in private landowner hands, but it is a conservation easement above it as well, which is a forest as you enter Samish Island. On the right, you'll see that it is right next to the Padilla Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve and many other protected lands. So it fits in well to a large suite of conservation areas. And I would say that not only is it important for conservation reasons, but it also is very important for cultural reasons. And the Samish Indian Nation wrote a letter of support for this project when we applied for grants, saying that this property has tremendous cultural significance for us. And they have pledged support of their natural resource team and their tribal historic preservation officer because of the importance of this project. On this picture, you can see where the abandoned heronry is. I don't know, yeah, right there. So that's in a conservation easement. And then the Samish Flower Farm, which was recently preserved by many of us and you, is right there next to it. And then this property immediately adjoins it. So our goals, Skagit Land Trust, when we decided that this was a great project to do, what we want to do is we want to conserve the property forever. Then we'll allow low impact recreation, birding, walking, things like that. Importantly, we want to explore options to return the low elevation aspects of the property to tidally influenced habitat. So tidal marsh, salt marsh. This will benefit so many different species, some of these named here, salmonoids, crab, herring, worms, shrimp, clams, but also it's a type of habitat that has been lost and really needs work to make sure that we regain some of it. To do that, we need to explore options with both the county and the state to set back the dike, because of course the dike protects the road. So the goal would be to see if there's a way that we could restore the lowlands while protecting the road with a setback dike. For you all and the community, the opportunities are that we protect that beautiful view and rural approach to Samish Island. We also protect and restore tidal wetland habitat. And interestingly, more than half of that wetland habitat has been lost. On Samish Island alone, in Samish Bay, less than half of its historic length of that habitat has been lost. So it's a diminishing habitat type and one that we need to restore. It will also expand beach access, which is quite limited in Skagit County. So currently there's a trail down to the Samish Flower Farm beach. There's a short walk. It's beautiful, and on the Samish Flower Farm beach, but this will extend out and you could walk another quarter mile along the shoreline, which is wonderful. And then of course, the most important thing is to get the land. Once we have the land, we can explore all sorts of options to deal with, well, what's the best way to restore the land, and how do we set back the dikes, and how do we protect the road in the face of climate change, and all sorts of other needs. So it allows us to start that planning. This is a view if you were driving down Samish Island Road looking out. The property on the far lip of this property is a dike, and I'll show some pictures later on of that dike. It's in various states of disrepair, but the property is very wet. It used to be farmlands, but now it is pretty much wetlands for most of the winter. It's quite salinated. The fresh water floats on top of the salt water, however, so there are some very nice freshwater wetlands on the property. And that's a picture on the right of one of those freshwater wetlands. And many of you know that Padilla Bay in particular is very important for Pacific brant geese who migrate from the Arctic down to, sometimes they go all the way down to Mexico. Some of them stay right here in Padilla Bay, others stop on their way to Padilla Bay. And this particular area right off the shore of this property often has many, many brant geese. The other thing that the Land Trust really enjoys doing is opening up our properties for education and research. And this will allow us to have a larger area. We're already doing some outdoor education and research on the Samish Flower Farm, but it gives us a larger area to be able to do this and have conservation classrooms, birding, bringing kids out to the site, working with groups like Padilla Bay to bring kids out to the site, and really engaging the community in restoration and exploration and education. Roger Fuller is going to give a little talk about the restoration possibilities of this area.
Hi, everyone. As Molly introduced me earlier, I work with the Padilla Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve. And is there any chance you could back up there? And I'll just mention the historical map here. This is an old map from the 1800s that shows a lot of the flatlands down here had been diked. So this heavy dark line is the dike where it was, but the area where this property is had not been diked yet. And you can see that historically there was tidal marsh in this area. And there was also a feature called an embayment, which is a really small bay that's completely enclosed by salt marsh, and that's connected by sinuous channels with the surrounding salt water. And these kind of habitats are few and far between in the Salish Sea. And the potential opportunity of restoring something like this is really exciting because it's a really important kind of a habitat. This is looking at what's left of the slough. There was a slough called Siwash Slough that used to connect Padilla Bay and Samish Bay. And this is the slough that used to go through there, and it's still there. It's used as a drainage area or a channel for the farmland right now. But yeah, you can follow the arrow there showing where the existing slough is. It doesn't connect anymore with salt water on either side. And a potential restoration project would be to try to reconnect that. And so you can see where the dike is along the Padilla Bay side. This is an image that shows the topography. And so you can see the kind of raised area there where the arrow is. And that dike, we would, if we did a restoration project, we would like to take out that dike and allow tidal flow to get back onto the property and reconnect that channel so that the channel can flush with the tide and allow salt marsh to reestablish on the lowlands of the property. And if you think about the salt marsh, if you think about the whole shoreline of Padilla Bay, a little more than half of it was bluff and beach habitat, like along most of Samish Island and Bayview Ridge and along Marches Point. And then a little less than half of the shoreline of Padilla Bay along the south end and the southeast end, and then everything from Bayview on up to Samish Island used to be tidal wetland, and all of that has been converted and lost. There's just a few remnant little bits and pieces of salt marsh left. And so this would be a really very significant restoration project in terms of the amount of salt marsh that we can restore to this system. And that marsh that used to be there was really productive. And those marsh plants are what are the base of the food web. So that's what provides the plant matter that all the critters, the insects and the worms and the clams and so on that live in the sediment, what they need to eat in order to grow and then to feed the rest of the food web, like the fish and the birds and so on. So it's a site of really a lot of ecological importance, a lot of critters that we care about use that area. Of course, the herons are really big in this area, and this would be a project that could support that. There's forage fish that use Padilla Bay quite heavily, and they spawn in different parts of the bay. And one of the habitat types where some of them spawn, like the surf smelt, are some of those gravelly and sandy beach habitats, like are on the existing Samish flower farm site, and it continues on to this site. There's a lot of invasive species, so the protection of this property allows us to manage invasive species and bring some of those under control, and it benefits the eelgrass and other things by helping to clean up some of the water drainage that comes from the site. The restoration would generate a lot of tremendous benefits, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of habitat, and those marshes are very productive for insects and other things that the fish use that come in to those wetlands, as well as the birds. And in terms of climate change resiliency, the marshes help to build the sediment. They trap the sediment and they build as the sea level rises. They have natural ways of building up the elevation of the land and keeping up with that. And so that's an important way to keep that area maintaining. And keeping that land as undeveloped allows for us to allow for the natural migration of the shoreline. So one thing, for instance, that will change with sea level rise is the location of that sand spit out in front of the flower farm and this property in particular. And with sea level rise and the change in storms and waves and so on, it's going to push that and allow it to migrate as it should naturally. And so that's a really important part of being able to restore this property. So there's a lot of really important functions that happen here. There's we could talk quite a bit about capturing carbon and so on as a possible thing. Salt marshes are great for that as a way to get carbon out of the atmosphere. So there's a lot of real great benefits there.
So we've done a couple of these presentations, and one of the questions we get is who owns the tidelands next to the property, and also what about the dikes? Very good and practical questions. So let's start with the right-hand slide. The property is in yellow plus this green. So the property does not, it owns a very small amount of tidelands, pretty much the same as the Samish Flower Farm along the Padilla Bay. But on the Samish Bay side, it owns the tidelands out to the edge of that green line. So it owns a lot of tidelands on the Alice Bay side and not very much. The other tidelands are owned by the Department of Ecology or by DNR. So as soon as you're past the median high tide level or whatever, you're into DNR or Washington Department of Ecology lands. The left-hand slide shows the diking districts, and diking districts are really interesting things. The white is an area that does not have a diking district, and there are currently 2 properties that are in what we would call the flatlands or the 100-year floodplain that are outside of the 100-year floodplain that are outside of the diking district, and that is this property and the property immediately to the south of it. So private dikes were built on these properties a long time ago, basically so people could access the island and also so they could protect their farmland. And these 2 properties have never been brought into a diking district. And this property in particular and the Samish Flower Farm are not in diking districts, but have private dikes on them on both the Alice Bay side and the Padilla Bay side. Those dikes are in various states. The picture in the upper left, they're standing on top of the dike. So you can see how big a dike that is, not all that big. On the right, the county came in, we talked to Dan Berenstein today to find out the dates. I think it was 2003, 2004, and maybe again in 2009. They came in and did some emergency repairs. And so there are parts of the dike that have had some emergency repairs done. But in general, the dike is in various states of disrepair. And as a private dike, the landowner is responsible for keeping the dike up to protect their own property, but of course they're not responsible for keeping up public infrastructure. So we've been talking to the county about, well, how do we have this be a win-win? How do we restore the marine habitat, but also make sure that the road to Samish Island is better protected than it is currently with this dike situation? So our plan is to fundraise from the community and secure both state and federal grants to purchase this property and start plans to look at what's the best restoration alternative. By the end of April, we need to buy the property. That's a critically important date, and it's a fast-paced fundraising campaign because of that date. So we are really on a roll to try to get all the funds in. We won't have the grant funds secured by that time. So we've actually taken out a loan to help get us to the finish line until we can get the grant funds. One grant has been awarded. The other grant we don't know about yet. The federal grant has been awarded. We don't have the money, but has been awarded. The state grant, we don't know if we're going to be awarded the funds or not. Then we'll create a management plan. And like we did with the Samish Flower Farm, we'll have a community meeting to get ideas and thoughts and input. We usually take about a year to create that plan. We'll clean up the property, the houses and other buildings will come out. There will be at least one trailer on the property for a while because using federal funds, we need to do a relocation. They get a relocation assistance, and sometimes that can take time for them to relocate it if they're renting on the property. So not all the trailers will be gone at once, but we'll make plans to take out the house and restore that area. And then we'll start looking at tidal and wetland restoration possibilities and what is the best thing to do. We don't know what the best thing to do is. We will confer with scientists and specialists in restoration ecologists to figure out what all the options are. So in terms of support, when we put in for state and federal grants, we had to, they want to know that the community supports us. And we had some great support. So Padilla Bay Natural Estuarine Reserve gave a wonderful letter of support, and we hope to actually do more education things with them on the project. It's a property. It's a great project, great joint project. Skagit County Public Works wrote a very strong letter of support because they would love to see a solution to the dikes in this area and a creative and sort of ecologically friendly solution. Skagit Audubon, a great partner. It's a wonderful area for birds, wrote a letter of support. As I said, the Samish Indian Nation is incredibly supportive of our ownership and will work with us as we develop this project and do the restoration to make sure that it is looking out for the cultural attributes. And early on, when we were putting in grants, we had a little group of Samish Island residents that circle the property that are neighbors, and they wrote letters and each gave a small donation to show that they were very supportive of this land being protected. And thank you. Many of them are on the phone tonight. And thank you. That was really helpful to show like the community does want this project to happen. So Laura's going to show a video flying over, and I'll commentate a bit about imagining that this is protected forever. So a lot of people on our slideshows ask where the boundary of the property is, and it's that very straight line. That's a ditch. And if you're driving on Samish Island Road, you can look down, there's water in the ditch. There is a trailer going into the south of the property. That is not on this property. That is on the neighbor's property. And as I said, the property owns some of the shoreline and tidal habitat on the Samish and Alice Bay side, and it's got quite a nice tidal marsh area there. Some of you on the call might be seeing your homes. And then on the Padilla Bay side, it connects seamlessly with the Samish Flower Farm. The homes will come out. They're actually on a little bit of a higher level. And then we'll work on what we're going to do to restore the bottom area, the lowland, diked areas of the property. And of course, public access along the beach will continue to be allowed and expanded. And we'll get input from the community about all the options that we have once this property is cleaned up and we're thinking about the future.
Okay, so that video was, this is Laura back, gonna take care of the rest of the program here. Hopefully, hi, you can see me. That was a great video that was put together by the videographer who helped us with our videos at our fall fundraising auction that we had this past year. So I am going to go over a little bit about the timeline for this project. As we have said, we have a very tight timeline for this project. We are in March, we're in the public phase of the campaign. And like Molly said, we need to secure at least $275,000 in donations to be able to purchase the property by the end of April. So we're looking to raise those funds by that time for that portion of the project. In the summer and fall, we'll be receiving hopefully state, and we do know now, the federal grants for this project. And although this is a very tight timeline, we have kicked off the public phase with our newsletter going out to all of our members. We're working to get the word out to the community, to members, to islanders, to the larger community. We are very lucky that because of some of these promising grants, we really only need to fundraise a fraction of the full costs of purchasing and stewarding this property. We have a landowner who is ready to sell. We have, a signed appraisal and purchase and sale agreement. And we have seen just a huge, just such a high level of community support for this project that we feel that this is possible. This is one of those once in a lifetime opportunities to really protect and conserve the gateway to Samish Island, that entrance that we all see that is so precious to us. So we feel that we do have the support to act now and save this property for generations of wildlife and people to enjoy. We're going to go over a little bit of the budget here. This is a breakdown of the expenses for purchasing the property. Then we have those initial stewardship funds that we know we're going to need to raise to take care of site cleanup, preparation for future restoration. We also have in this different transaction costs that will come along with doing this project. Like Molly said, we were able to secure a loan to bridge us until we were able to receive the grant funds. So it all totals up to hopefully raising about $410,000 from private donations from the community. And we have raised over $200,000 at this point. And we also have a very generous and growing matching fund that's out there. So we are right now, all donations that come in to the Samish Island entrance campaign, those will be matched dollar for dollar by some very generous matching funds that have been pledged. So we're in a really good standing to make this a reality. And I want to thank everyone for joining us. Again, if you have any other questions, please feel free to email me. I think most of you saw the article that is on our website right now. And like I said, we have those matching funds, $1 for all donations to this project. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us this evening, and thank you for being excited about the project.
And thank you so much. It's nice to see a lot of your faces tonight.